It's the Break Free Blog Vlog. I'm Zach.
I'm Ann, and we are back answering your questions with insights from our experiences. So, or something.
Our pain.
Our pain becomes our podcast.
That is a great idea for a podcast, and we should talk about that offline. Our pain is our podcast. I like that.
I kind of like that too. So, the question today is, what does effective rehearsal look like? How do you do it? How does this happen? Because a lot of times people will go to rehearsals and it kind of turns into more of a jam situation, and where you leave with at least as many questions and unstable parts that you had of like, oh yeah, now we'll work on that, and then you don't work on it. So I don't know, has this been your experience, Zach? I can give different bands I've been in where yeah, kind of got together with very good intentions and plans of rehearsing. We even had a set list, and and kind of, I'm sure everybody had ideas of what they wanted to work on and what they weren't feeling really stable on. But yeah, maybe neighbors came and went. Maybe people just got distracted by tunes of the moment or telling stories, and you're like, wait,
Right.
I scheduled this rehearsal.
Yeah. The best compliment I ever received, I was doing a radio show, and my drummer said that he appreciated how I would send out set lists for gigs like months in advance.
Yes.
And I use set lists sort of as the agenda, but Ann, I really think that we ought to lean on your experience, because your band is like the most, of all my musician friends, you have the most professional band I know. So I'd like to hear about what you guys do.
Yeah, so Hard Road Trio, Steve Smith and Chris Sanders and myself, they have really taught me how to rehearse and how to enjoy rehearsal and how to have productive rehearsal. And for one, we're all pretty time conscious and considerate of one another's time. So I think that's one thing, is recognizing that everybody's invested here and that we're all showing up with an agenda. And so, yeah, we've got this goal, right? Um, so one thing we will do is we'll kick off a tune, and if the groove is not right off the bat, one of us will stop it, like before we go through the whole song and get frustrated, preferably. Sometimes we're better about this than others. But yeah, if the tempo's off, if the groove's off, if you're not all kind of breathing the same air, we stop it and we kind of tune into each other. And sometimes we'll set a tempo, or Steve will ask, okay, what's the groove that you want? And he'll be doing a groove on his mandolin, but yeah, that's it. Or one of us will describe like a mental image. Chris has a song about a horse called Tommy Chief, and she says, yeah, it's like you're galloping through the countryside, and that gives you a pretty good idea of a groove. And so be like, oh,
Right.
you've got that. Or if you're like, yeah, this is like lazy river, you're just trying to figure out, how do you communicate the feel of a song. And so first off, if it's your song, you've got to have an idea of what that is, instead of being like, I don't know, it's just kind of whatever you want.
Right.
So that's part of it, is if it's your song, or if you're doing a certain cover, have an idea of how you want that to sound and work on communicating that in a couple different ways to your bandmates. What I would also,
Can I ask you a quick question?
Yeah.
How long are your rehearsals?
Our rehearsals vary, and we rehearse a lot, because even when we're on the road playing a show every night, we're still, if at all possible, trying to make time for at least an hour or two rehearsal a day, ideally. So,
Truth.
and it's why we're so tight, and so it takes maintenance. Even though we've been playing together nearly 11 years, we still rehearse a lot, even if it's tunes we've been playing that long. And when we get together, sometimes, when we're kind of doing maintenance rehearsal in between, Sometimes we'll set aside like a morning or an afternoon, so it may end up being like a 4-ish hour rehearsal, and we're pretty good about taking breaks when we need to. But yeah, so it depends, but we're kind of looking at probably minimal hour rehearsal whenever we get together. And
Nice.
like I say, sometimes we break that up. Um, so you work with what you have. Um, I want to go back a moment to kind of talking about being invested. As I recognize in college, I could get away with pretty much showing up to a lot of gigs if it was real straight bluegrass stuff. And because a lot of the progressions are very similar or they're tunes I already knew, I didn't really, or at least I felt like this is it. I felt like I didn't have to rehearse. I felt like I could show up and I'd be fine, and it probably so,
Mhm.
but I wasn't going to be able to catch any of the nuances or really work out harmony parts or anything that was going to sound like a polished set. So, and part of it too was I was not invested. If it was something that didn't matter to me too much, or I knew I wasn't getting paid, or
Right.
whatever, for whatever it was, or too, if I was, oh, well, I'm just done and I'm just play bass, I wouldn't care as much. I started caring more I was singing more, or especially if I was doing my own tunes, because then it's like, oh, this reflects on me.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, whatever that trick is for you as a bandmate to be invested in your band, that's going to make your rehearsal more effective. Because if it's feeling like, oh, it doesn't matter, it's their show, I'm just showing up and playing my little part, you're probably not going to work as hard and you're not going to pay as much attention.
Yeah, I think being invested is the most important part of the whole process. Or not the
Yeah,
process, the whole commitment. I think that's the one where you, the musicians really separate out.
I agree. And I see where it's been in projects still,
Mm-hmm.
where I'm more invested, that's probably going to be more successful.
Yep. I'll tell you, I've been a hired gun before, where bands have like their guitar player was out, and so they hired me to play for one show. And I remember getting on like doing a sound check because we didn't rehearse and going, I know these tunes better than you guys. This is going to be a horrific night.
Yeah, and that's kind of rough too. So also kind of looking at that is um there are times that there's going to be a mismatch of levels. Truthfully, in most bands there are. There's
Right.
going to be the stronger players and the weaker players. And you hope everybody's going to kind of rise up and, um but
That's 100% true, everybody. There's going to be better and worse players, unless you're in the hard road trio when everybody is just a boss at their respective talents, and
let's see.
you're just like, the hell.
I feel like I'm the weak in that band, really.
You
So
heard it here, people. The best bass player I know is the weak member of her band.
so they make me rise up. They make me bring my A game more and more. So that's just kind of part of it.
Yeah.
And it could be also that you're just having an off day. If you're normally the strong player and you could be having an off day, whatever the case, you know. But it's that, yeah, investment, being willing to show up thing. So going back to other things that I've noticed really work well for rehearsal, one, correcting your groove as soon as you can, having an idea of what that is. Um, in your arrangements, being sure everybody kind of knows, okay, this is where we bring it down, this is where we're building it up, this is where you come in, this is where you don't. And because things change, because a lot of our tunes have evolved over the years. So I'm like, oh no, I remember how we used to do it,
Right.
but now I don't. So, so whatever, as a, remember that, whether you need to have a chart and write things out, I come in here, that works well. Or, and when in doubt, don't be afraid of asking your bandmates, hey, I don't, is this really what happens here? Because it's better to ask than to be wondering, or just to be like, well, they never told me, so this is what I'm going to do.
Right.
So it's that keeping communication open between bandmates instead of everybody showing up and assuming that everybody else knows what's going on, or that one person is in charge and is going to tell you. Or if that's the case, maybe you do have a band leader and that's known that such and so is going to lead the whole thing, and that's fine as long as that's the understanding. Another thing that's really effective for us is we work up a lot of 3-part harmonies, and so when we're doing that, we'll stop and just sing that part, and we may have a guitar chord as a reference, and we'll slow things down and really tune into each other. And so you've got your little tight circle, your 3 heads, and so, but you're really working on that. For me personally, for me to tune into harmony parts, I will internalize what that feels like in my face or in my body, because different parts of your body resonate when you're singing. And so, because a lot of times I'm singing a fairly high part, and so I'm thinking, okay, that's right behind my nose. And if I can kind of remember that, along with if I need to write down what my starting note is, or think, okay, if I can think I'm a third above and I can hear that, great. But for me, it's very much a physical thing, and I have to think, this is how it feels in my body.
Which is super useful, singers, whenever you're playing a show and you can't hear yourself.
Yeah, no kidding, because there's times you won't be able to.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just like playing your instrument. There's times you won't be able to hear yourself, but your hands are going to go to the right place.
Yep.
So that helps out a lot for effective rehearsals. Making sure that your issues or songs are addressed is also really important, because you want people to leave feeling like the rehearsal was worthwhile, and so kind of allowing time for that. Or if there's things beforehand, because a lot of times, because we are a distance challenged band in which I live 5 hours away from Steve and Chris, we'll communicate beforehand and say, all right, I really want to look at these new tunes.
Right.
And then we're sure to hit them first instead of, going over stuff we already know. It's also nice, kind of on that point, because sometimes those tunes that you're really wanting to hit are the harder tunes, and you don't want to just start with that. It's nice to have a good warm-up tune that everybody knows, that's a good 2 or 3 chord song that everybody can just, kind of settle into. Oh yeah, we sound good. I like playing with you guys.
I think that's a great tip. I think that's I'm going to start doing that in my rehearsals.
It's really nice. And so whenever we do that, we're immediately like, so everybody's in a good mood. But don't make the assumption that just because it's an easy tune for you that everybody else knows it and that they can grab onto it, because then that's going to start everybody off being frustrated. So
Truth.
you kind of find what your kind of, bag of easy tunes that hopefully everybody knows, and start off with that. And it can be similar with your own personal practice time. If you kind of begin and end on a good note, it's make everything in between seem better, even if it was pretty challenging.
Dude, that's just good advice for music. Like, have your intros and your outros tight as hell, because people will sometimes forget that you butchered the bridge.
Oh, for sure. So that's kind of looking at another tip that I would say for effective rehearsals is, after you guys have, if you've been struggling on parts and really, really working, and getting things tight, don't leave feeling frustrated. Do this kind of the same thing as end on a, let's play that song just because we like it and we like how we sound.
Love it.
And so those are some of tips I've found for really effective rehearsals.
And you know what, guys, I couldn't say it any better than her, and she's a better authority on this than I am. So, Anne, I think you covered it. That's how you have a good rehearsal, people. Do what she said. She knows things. Anne plays bass and knows things. That's a Game of Thrones reference. I don't watch Game of Thrones. I don't even know why I would say that.
It's for all you cool kids out there.
All you cool kids who like dragons and shit. All right. Well, I'm Zach Sloan.
I'm Ann Luna. Thanks for tuning in.
Peace.